Hi everybody. I'm going to film this video again because I realized I forgot 3 books I was going to talk about, so I'm just going to reshoot everything. Okay, so this is a combination book haul and reading progress video because I picked up new books at the library today and also acquired some new purchases that just came in the mail, so I have a lot of books to talk about. We're going to start with the library books. The first book I am rereading is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. This is a horror book that was recommended to me by my former hairdresser, Andrea, at Bang Cut and Color, who moved away in June to be closer to where her and her husband are going to be living, so I wish her luck in her marriage. So as people have seen throughout the year, I have been reading books that are inspired by characters in Friends and Gilmore Girls. So I asked my hairdresser for 2 book recommendations. One for The Sixth Sense, the thriller movie with Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment, and she recommended this book to me to go with that movie. And funnily enough, Carly at the Pastel Bookshelf also recommended this book in her video, which I will tag in the description box, about if you like this book, read this movie. If you like this movie, read this book. And she recommended this book and The Toll House by Carly Reagan for The Sixth Sense. So this book is by Jason Rekulak, a new author to me. And this is about a girl named Mallory who gets a nannying job for a little boy named Max. Teddy, who is 5 years old, and he has been hearing this weird creature in his closet, and the illustrations of what he sees is pretty frightening. Let me show you an example of a picture. I love the illustrations in this book. Isn't this so great? So I think this creature he's seeing kind of reminds me of The Other Mother from Coraline, if you guys have seen that book or watched that movie. So I read this book in June, and I gave it 5 stars. And the other book that my hairdresser recommended is called The American Roommate Experiment by Elena R. Mars. It's the sequel to The Spanish Love Deception, which, by the way, if you hated The Spanish Love Deception, forget about that book and read the sequel, because the sequel is so much better and so much funnier. So the male main character in The American Roommate Experiment is very similar to Joey, who is played by Matt LeBlanc on Friends, and I also gave that book 5 stars. The next book that I have is The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. My first Lana Ferguson book I was not a huge fan of. It was last December's release, called Under Lock and Key, which is a romance book about a girl falling in love with the Loch Ness Monster. I guess if you're into the urban legend about the Loch Ness Monster, you'll like that book. I couldn't really get into it, so I DNF'd it at page 140. But this book is called The Nanny, and I found it on a list on Instagram about books paired up with comfort TV shows from the 90s and 2000s. And naturally, this book was paired up with The Nanny, which starred Fran Drescher. So this book is about Cassie Evans, and she starts an OnlyFans account to get a job because she loses her job. And this book kind of also reminds me of the book I read earlier this year, which I gave 5 stars to, called Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufy Thomas. I read that book for book club at the bookstore with Rachel Conrad, Books and Brews. this book focuses on Cassie. She loses her job, and the person who hires her to be a nanny finds her OnlyFans account, and that's how she hires her. So, obviously, the dynamic between Cassie and Aiden reminds me of Fran and Mr. Sheffield from The Nanny. For those of you who do not know, The Nanny was one of my favorite shows when I was growing up, besides Friends. So my favorite shows growing up were Friends, Mad About You, Spin City, The Nanny, Seinfeld, and Frasier, and Mike and Molly, and yeah, a lot of different things. But yeah, so far I am on page 219, chapter 15. The next book is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. This is my second book by Janice Hallett after reading her Christmas novella, The Christmas Appeal. And these two murder mystery books are focused around a theater troupe. The Christmas Appeal is set during like the Christmas season, and this theater group is putting on like a production of Jack and the Beanstalk, and the actor who is supposed to play Jack is found murdered in the Beanstalk prop. 5 stars. I'm going to give this book 5 stars too, probably just because it's about the same theater company from The Christmas Appeal, and I will read you what this book is about. The Fairway Players, an amateur theater group, are in the middle of rehearsals for their production of Arthur Miller's All My Sons when tragedy strikes the family of director Martin Hayward and his wife, Helen. Their young granddaughter is diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, which faces an experimental treatment that costs a tremendous sum. So their fellow castmates rally to raise money to give her a chance of survival. But not everybody is convinced of the experimental treatment's efficacy, nor of the good intentions of those involved. As tension grows within the community, things come to a shocking head. At the explosive dress rehearsal the next day, a dead body is found, and soon an arrest is made. In the run-up to the trial, 2 young lawyers sift through the evidence, emails, messages, letters, with a growing suspicion that the killer may be hiding in plain sight. The proof is all there between the lines, waiting to be uncovered. Currently, I am on page 190. The next book... Actually, I'm going to do a special feature because I am reading 2 nonfiction books by the same author on my TBR this month. The first book I just picked up from the library today. It is John Green's new release from September called Everything is Tuberculosis, which is about the disease tuberculosis and how it came about and how it's treated. I am on page 52. I just started this right before dinner. The next book that I am reading by John Green is the Anthropocene Reviewed, which, oddly enough, is on a list of recommendations in the back of the 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So this is a collection of essays, and I will read you what it's about. The Anthropocene is a current geologic age in which humans have profoundly reshaped the planet and its biodiversity. In this remarkable symphony of essays, best-selling author John Green reviews different facets of the human-centered planet on a 5-star scale, from the QWERT keyboard in Sunsets to Canada, geese, and penguins of Madagascar. Funny, complex, and rich with detail, the reviews chart the contradictions of contemporary humanity. John Green's gift for storytelling throughout the masterful collections, the Anthropocene Reviewed is an open-hearted exploration of the past 3 fours in the unironic celebration of falling in love with the world. I am currently on page 101. The next reread I am currently doing is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. I read this in March for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR because I found it on a list of recommendations for books that describe Lane. And yeah, this character definitely describes Lane. This is set during the Red Scare in 1950s San Francisco and focuses on a lesbian couple named Lily and Kath. And Lily's dad is threatened to be deported back to China, which I feel this book connects to the present day issues with illegal immigrants being captured by ICE and deported. So that's kind of ironic. In my reread, I am on chapter 41, page 330. The next book that I picked up at the library today is on the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR for March. Me and Kathleen found this book on a recommendations list for books that describe characters from Little Women. And this is about a group of women who read Jane Austen books. And the Little Women character that this book describes is Jo. Okay. We're halfway there. The next... I didn't plan this pile out. The next 2 books are books that I ordered with the gift card to Grump Sunshine Books that Kathleen gave me for Christmas. The first book I'm going to be reading for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is All Too Well. This is by a new romance author, Corinne Michaels. A new booktuber I just discovered named Tori at A Novel Life loves this series, so I cannot wait to get into it. I will tell you what this book is about. I was doing great, pretending he doesn't exist, until I was assigned to write an article about former college athletes, and I learned that the Sexy Single Dad is my first interview. Now, determined to wow my editor with an amazing sports ball piece, have I mentioned I know nothing about sports? I head to Ember Falls ready to face my fears and the man I love. The grumpy quarterback turned fireman wants nothing to do with me or my article, yet somehow I persuade him to let me follow him around for a few weeks, and even if he said yes, to just get rid of me. I'll take it. But the longer I stay in his small town, the more complicated our story gets. The boundaries we set fall to the ground, along with our clothes. He holds me like I matter, touches me like I'm cherished, and kisses me like he loves me. We both know I have to leave Ember Falls, and he'll never follow. I just wish I could write a different ending to our story. First of all, check out how beautiful this cover is. I think whoever designed it did a beautiful job. So the main characters in this book are named Our main characters are Ainsley and Lachlan. So the main guy character in this book makes me think of the main character from Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. I think it's just because his last name is Lachlan. But I found this book on a Instagram post about books that describe friends couples, and this was obviously paired with Monica and Chandler. And I can't wait to see how this book describes them. But also, I mean, this main character, Ainsley, could also describe Rory from Gilmore Girls because she's a journalist. So I'm very, very excited about this book. The next book I ordered with the gift card from Kathleen was Next to You, which is by the same author as Out on a Limb. I loved Out on a Limb. Now it's a 5-star read. The second book in that series, which is called Out of the Woods, that features the side couple Sarah and Caleb from Out on a Limb. That book was 3 stars just because I couldn't connect to that couple as much as Win and Bo from Out on a Limb. And then her release from September, which I reviewed in a recent podcast episode for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR podcast that Kathleen and I do together, was 2.5 to 3 stars. So this book, I will tell you what it's about. Lane is in the middle of an identity crisis. Her friends are all partnered up. Her career is heading nowhere. And simply put, she's not happy. So after a night out and celebrating her birthday, she makes one hell of an impulsive purchase. A giant 48-passenger yellow school bus that she intends to make her home. With little to no renovation experience but money from a large inheritance, Lane enlists the help of her friend Matt, a mechanic by trade, handyman by practice, and a hottie by nature. When their mutual attraction is undeniable, Matt and Lane have silently agreed that their friendship is the only thing that can exist between them. So, Matt's a total family guy will settle down with me virtually tattooed across his forehead, whereas Lane is entirely commitment averse. It could never work, right? So the funny thing about the couple in this book is that their dynamic is totally, opposite to Monica and Chandler, because as you guys know, by the discussions that I've done and the fact that I have read Matthew Perry's memoir more than once, Chandler is very commitment phobic because his parents were divorced when he was 10 years old. And in this book, Lane, who is named after Rory's best friend in Gilmore Girls, by the way, is the one who's commitment phobic. And Matt, who's the guy, is like Monica. He's the one who wants to have the kids. So I'm interested to see how that role reversal works out. So I'm excited to read this one. The next 2 books on my TBR were the books that I bought with the remaining funds on the gift card that Lucinda and Jeremy gave me for my birthday. The first book is called After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. When Lauren and Ryan's marriage reaches the breaking point, they come up with an unconventional plan. They decide to take a year off in hope of finding a way to fall in love again. 1 year apart and only one rule. They cannot contact each other. Aside from that, anything goes. Lauren embarks on a journey of self-discovery, quickly finding that her friends and family have had their own ideas about the meaning of marriage. These influences, as well as her own healing process and the challenges of living apart from Ryan, begin to change Lauren's idea about monogamy and marriage. She starts to question, when can you leave romance without fidelity and commitment without marriage? When love and lust are no longer tied together, what do you value? What are you willing to fight for? This is a love story about what happens when the love fades. It's about staying in love, seizing love, forsaking love, and committing to love with everything you've got. And above all, After I Do is a story of a couple caught up in an old game and searching for a new road to happily ever after. So I found this book on a list on Instagram of books that describe Friends characters, and it was paired up with Ross, and I think that based on the trajectory of Ross's relationship with Rachel throughout the series, this is probably a good fit for a book that could describe their relationship. So, obviously, I don't think Rachel could have gone on a journey like this where she would have to get away from Ross for a year. It would be hard for her to get away from him totally because their friend group is always so intertwined. But if their relationship trajectory had been reversed, I can see her being in Lauren's situation when she breaks up with Ross in season 3, when they get in a fight when she cheats on him, when she cheats on her with Chloe, the coffee shop girl. But also, this makes me think of when they get married in Las Vegas and how rocky their relationship is after they get married in Las Vegas, and how Ross tries to get the marriage annulled but doesn't get it annulled, and all the messiness with that. So I can picture this being an alternate storyline for Ross and Rachel's relationship, where in either of those situations, either after she gets cheated on or after the marriage in Las Vegas breaks apart, Rachel goes on a journey to find out if the relationship with Ross is going to be worth it. But, I mean, as you guys know, I hate the ending of Friends and how Rachel gets off the plane to Paris and gives up her job that she worked so hard for. So this could also be like an alternate version of what happens after the finale too. There are 3 different potential Ross and Rachel relationship plots that this book could retell. And who knows, this might inspire one last hurrah of a fan fiction for my anthology of alternate Friends storylines that I've been working on. The next book on the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is West Side Story. So Kathleen and I are going to be reading this book in April. And we're also going to be watching the movie that came out in 1961 with Natalie Wood. But we could also watch the recent revamp of it from 2021 with Rachel Zegler. We haven't decided which version of the movie we're going to watch yet. So I picked this book for the TBR because I have a personal connection to this play. I first saw the movie in 9th grade English class when we were studying Romeo and Juliet, because obviously this play is a modern reinterpretation of Romeo and Juliet, but instead of it being in Italy, it's in New York City. Instead of being feuding families at war, it's former New York City gangs. If you are a fan of Romeo and Juliet, please also read One for My Enemy by Olive Blake. This romance book takes place in modern day New York and focuses on a family of witches and a family of warlocks that have feuding apothecary spell shops. And Romeo's character's name is Lev, and Juliet's character's name is Sasha. I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I am reading for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is a novel love story by Ashley Poston. This is the second Ashley Poston book that I have read for Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR. This book is about a romance author who gets transported into the world of her book, and the small town that her book takes place in is very similar to Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. And just for that aspect of the story alone, this book got 5 stars for me, so I'm happy to be rereading it again this December. The other Ashley Poston book that I read was her new release from June, Sounds Like Love, which I gave also 4.5 stars to. 5 stars. So, in my reread, I'm not very far in. I just literally started this book again this morning. I'm only on page 60, but I'm planning to read more of it in a little bit once I finish making this video. The final library book I wanted to talk about is Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. The Story of Little Women and Why It Still Matters. This is a nonfiction book that I read last fall when I was rereading Little Women. And basically it talks about the history of Little Women, why Louisa May Alcott wrote the book, how she came up with the characters, how Jo March is basically a self-insert for her because she loves to write. And there's a chapter in this book about characters in modern day media who could be representative of Jo March. And guess who one of the main characters discusses? I bet you'll never guess. Rory Gilmore, of course. So, of course, that's why I had to select this book for the TBR. Kathleen and I will be reading this book and the Jane Austen Society, and also A Man Called Ove by Friedrich Bachmann in March when we read Little Women. And we are excited about, this will be my 3rd or 4th time reading Little Women. Little Women, by the way, in case you don't know how this book connects to Friends. So, in the episode from season 3, the one where Monica and Richard are just friends, where Monica and Richard try to rekindle their romance after breaking up, Joey and Rachel have a little book club on the side where they exchange books. Joey convinces Rachel to read The Shining by Stephen King, and Rachel convinces Joey to read Little Women. And I love the scene where they're like spoiling what happens in the books for each other. And basically, they're having a conversation about spoiling the books. And Joey spoils the ending of The Shining for Rachel by accident. And then Rachel gets mad at him for doing that. And she basically spoils the ending of Little Women, which is, of course, Beth dies. And during the course of this conversation, Ross says to Rachel, "You have ruined the book. The only book that Joey has ever loved that did not star Jack Nicholson." Because, obviously, the movie of The Shining stars Jack Nicholson. And he was also in the movie for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is another classic book to movie adaptation. I don't know what other book to movie adaptations he has started. Maybe 12 Angry Men is one. If you know what other book to movie adaptations that he has started, let me know. And that is today's reading progress / wrap up. So these are the books I will be reading in the weeks leading up to Christmas. And then, of course, I'm probably going to be getting more new books for Christmas. And that haul video will be out on December 27th. And on December 28th, the rest of my end of the year content will be coming out. That is 10 Before the End TBR wrap up, 2026 goals, and 26 books I want to read in 2026. And then also, Matt and I have a new entertainment review video coming out on the 20th, in which I will be sharing the progress of my holiday TBR and telling you guys about the other holiday books that I have been reading. So if you have read any of these other books, please tell me what you think of them. If you have any recommendations for me, leave them in the comments too. I cannot guarantee I will get around to reading them because I already have a long list for a TBR for the next couple months, and add into that the 26 books I want to read for 2026. I will be busy pretty much all year, and for those of you who are wondering, I am getting to a point where my schedule is going to be getting really busy with my new job. So I'm going to be having to cut back on making so many videos after January 1st. My reading progress videos will be out bi-weekly. The only time I will not be putting out a reading progress video will be on the weeks that Matt and I make the entertainment review videos, because I will be doing my reading progress updates in those videos. So the weeks that I will not be doing reading progress videos will be January 31st, February 28th, April 26th, and the weekend before 4th of July and the weekend before Labor Day. Yeah, so basically, when it comes to scheduling future videos, Matt and I, and also Kathleen and I, have had numerous discussions about planning for videos for next year, and we are all together collectively suffering burnout because of having to consume so much stuff to review for you guys. So that's why we have to kind of pull back our schedules a little bit. Also, as I was just saying, Matt and I are starting a new job. Kathleen and I have to kind of give ourselves time to read all of the books we're reading. So our video posting schedule for the podcast will be April 26th. In July, we're going to just post our book reviews on the written blog, and you'll be able to find a link to the written blog in the description box of the podcast videos. In September, our video will be out in the 26th, and in November, our video will be out on the 29th. So, essentially, the podcast is going to be ending in December because, as I was just saying, scheduling issues and burnout, and just being too overloaded with content we're consuming to review and not having enough time to watch everything. So that's why we had to kind of be more selective about what we're reading and watching for next year's TBR. So Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. And Matt and I will be back on Saturday with our on Saturday the 20th with our first part of our holiday entertainment wrap-up. And in that video, we would like you guys to answer the following questions in the comments. What are you thankful for? What are your favorite holiday traditions? What are your favorite holiday movies and holiday TV show episodes? So think about that in the next week or so. Leave that in our comment section on our video on the 20th, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great weekend and a great week next week. Bye!